Look at that. We're live.
We're
3 minutes
live.
late, but we're here.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you for being patient with us. We are going to talk about David Mamet's House of Games.
Yes.
Right? That's
Yeah.
what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. I mean, do we have any preamble to do? Do we just want to do it? There's no preamble. We don't need no stinking preamble.
Exactly.
I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to the next reel. When the movie ends,
Our conversation begins.
House of Games is over. Years from now, they're going to have to go to a museum to see a frame like this. That was even too emotional, that read. That was too much emotion for this script. We are talking about House of Games. This is part of we're filling in another hole in our David Mamet Directs series, in which we have already talked about The Spanish Prisoner and Red Belt, which is, I think, gives you exactly what I like about David Mamet sometimes, it turns out.
As long as we're not talking about him as a person, this is a great conversation.
Okay.
I'm kind of sick of Mamet, frankly.
I know. You know what?
He's kind of
been
made
editing
himself an ugly man, and I just don't.
He
like
totally
it.
has. But you know what? We do so many shows across True Story of people about entertainment where the people who created it, they're just problematic human beings, and they've made themselves ugly, and it's getting hard to have to do I acknowledge that we're separating the art from the artist. So I feel like we need a blanket statement. We're separating the art from the artist all the time, even the good ones. They don't get to be good or bad people. We're just talking about the art. And let's just move on, because you're right. It's it's exhausting to do that.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. I thought I had seen this movie. I had not seen this movie. This was new to me. Yeah.
Of all people, you
I know.
are the one who has driven the David Mamet Writes and David Mamet Direct series that we have done, and you've never seen this one?
This one I hadn't seen.
You, the man who sat me down in college and had me watch, I can't remember what.
No.
No, it
Glengarry? What was it?
Lydiana or something. What's that name? Oleana? Is that it?
Okay. I don't remember. What story we're talking about. But that's part
it's
of
just
the
another
course.
obscure David Mamet movie that you sat me down to watch, and this is the one you haven't seen. That's crazy to me.
It's crazy to me too. Believe me, it's crazy to me too. Especially because I had it so firmly in the catalog. Like I thought, oh, it's Mantegna. Sure, I've seen it. Like they're all of the Mamet constant collaborators. Sure, yeah, Bing Bang Boom. I've seen it. I hadn't seen it. This was totally, the memory was gone. If I'd seen it, I didn't remember it.
Interesting. Well, I had seen it. This is one that I don't know, I rented ages ago, and I watched it probably in a period where I was more interested in Mamet and trying to kind of watch some of the different projects that he had been part of. And so I enjoyed it, but I when I came into this one, I really didn't remember much about it at all. I remembered the basics of the psychiatrist and the con man, but any of the plot mechanics were completely gone from my mind. So it was pretty new for me also.
Good. All right. So we're both pretty fresh.
Yes.
One of us fresher than others. Okay. That's fine. This is an interesting one. It was his directorial debut. He also wrote it. He was coming hot off of just his, he's a guy who's born and bred in the stage, and his plays are legion and legendary, and actors love playing Mamet because he just does some interesting things with language. There are some who believe Mamet writes in the most human way. He captures dialogue in an incredibly human way. If you just stop and listen to how people talk, that Mamet captures that almost directly, and therefore it is almost impossible to deliver with the same authenticity. And that's one of the things that gives Mamet a bit of a stilted approach and makes him such a challenge to portray. And this movie is very much an exemplar of some of that with regard to dialogue. It's interesting how I feel like his first directorial note to the entire cast was, whatever you do, don't show anything in your eyes. Everything is nose down. And that's a weird note, but everybody took it except maybe J.T. Walsh, and this is the movie that comes out of it. What do you think of it?
Interesting. I mean, I definitely think I go back and forth on Mamet and his dialogue.
Oh, I know you do.
Well, and it very much depends on who's delivering it. I will definitely get that out there, because as much as he loves Rebecca Pidgeon, who I think he's still married to, I cannot handle listening to her deliver David Mamet dialogue. I just think that she makes it hard for me. Joe Mantegna, I think, is great. But even in this film, I think there are moments where people are, particularly in like back and forth, and it's often with little words like Lindsay Crouse starts a line, and then her doctor friend, and she pauses, and her doctor friend, Dr. Lidauer, is like, yes, like immediately.
Yeah.
And then Lindsay comes in and finishes her line. It's like those little one-word interruptions and stuff that are, I mean, they're scripted. Those are absolutely.
Yes.
I've only directed one play in my life, and it was a David Mamet play with high school kids, The Revenge of the Space Pandas or Binky Rudich and the Two-Speed Clock, which was a lot of fun. But high school kids and Mamet is a challenge. But even grown-ups, like you're watching this and you're seeing adults who also, it's written in a way that I understand it's meant to feel natural, but man, sometimes it just doesn't to me.
Well, this is the weird thing, because I mean, if you can imagine, if you can kind of put yourself in the headspace, same script, even same actors, but you tell them that their job is to interrupt one another, right? To constantly step on each other's lines, then those scenes start to make more sense, right? The way it's delivered here, and weirdly, the way he directed himself, his own writing, was to have the actors constantly wait until the last second right after they finish a line, and then the person starts with their line. But these scenes work so much better when you think of them as that sort of rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat-a. People are stepping on each other all the time, and it's supposed to be really, really fast, like I'm jumping in on your thought. You're not even going to get your thought out before I'm saying, yes, like, go on. And then it makes more sense. And I think on stage, you have this opportunity to play with the way Mamet writes himself, right? To actually give people the chance to jump on top of each other at every turn. And that's when Mamet, the script writer, is at its very best, because I think he writes those voices in his head, and I am baffled why this movie comes off as stilted as it does, because it's not directed the way it appears so obviously to me to be written.
Yeah, and I mean, he had written many plays before he got to this point. He'd also written 3 screenplays before he got to this point, and so he had been behind many writings and already had a handle on his flow and pace and everything. And so I don't think it's unreasonable to think that this is a person who's coming into a position where he probably had a handle on how to direct his own writing, right? Like he probably already sensed the way that the pacing needs to be. And so it's interesting getting behind the camera here with actors in film that maybe it took more learning than he realized. Because it is different than theater.
I mean, you look at Sexual Perversity in Chicago. It is a great comic play. It's a Mamet romance, essentially. And the opening sequence is a walk and talk, and it's just an incredible, to see it on stage, not directed by Mamet, is extraordinary, because this opening sequence is foul and funny and fantastic. And it's these two guys talking about exploits, sexual exploits from the night before, and they are all over each other's lines. They're on top of each other. And then you see the movie About Last Night, and that opening sequence is between Rob Lowe and Belushi, and Jim Belushi, and it gives you that same sort of stilted, like these actors are waiting for one another, and it doesn't seem. It just doesn't seem right. Like the number of examples of Mamet writing directed poorly for screen, I think, is higher. It's actually changed my opinion a little bit about The Spanish Prisoner, which is one of my very favorite movies. But it has some similar beats that of stilted dialogue, and I think Steve Martin and Ricky Jay happen to be two people who are very good at Mamet dialogue. Rebecca Pidgeon, I struggle with, probably not as much as you do, but I definitely see it. Yeah. And yet I think that's another movie that could use some less gated, less strict approach to the words, and more jazz, right? Just more allowing the actors to inhabit these words that actually make sense in a human mouth. Like, they do make sense to me. It's just delivery is tough. And I think that's what makes this movie in particular feel as cold as it does, as, we're going to strip out so much of the character's sort of interiority. We're just going to see what's actually happening, and not give these people a chance to really act, to do their jobs in service of the story, and I find that a distraction.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, and maybe some of it is also just the dialogue itself, because I mean, going back to that yes example, it's like, I don't know, in my world, rarely is somebody I'm talking to so anticipatory of my next words that they're saying yes right before I've had a
Go
chance
on.
to pause. Right.
Go on.
Exactly. Like, it makes more sense. Like, if I'm talking and I drift and I pause and they're waiting and then they're like, yes, and so there's moments like that where it's like his dialogue doesn't even make sense as written. And I think that's one of the things that, like, a lot of people talk about how it feels so realistic. And I'm like, not always.
It just doesn't.
Not always.
It doesn't always. Right. Because, I think maybe had he directed the actors to be able to truly embody these characters, that conversation is a great one, because the elder doctor is just a placeholder for, any expert in the field. Like, she doesn't have any depth. I don't get any idea who she is, apart from a placeholder for Lindsay Crouse to bounce her own imposter syndrome off of. And maybe had Mamet let these actors off the leash to say, we're going to go ahead and make a movie, and you're going to play it. You're really going to play it. You're not just a cog in the very precise machine. I think it could have been something that I could connect to emotionally a little bit more robustly.
Yeah.
I don't feel like the doctor cares about the speech, what Lindsay Crouse is saying. And Lindsay Crouse is saying nonsense. Like, she is, because I don't get a sense of who she is as a doctor, the stuff she says to her mentor is just like empty calories.
Well, and that was a weird bit in here that it happens, I think, 3 times over the course of the film, where Dr. Ford, Maggie, Lindsay Krause's character, twice she's talking to Dr. Lidauer, and she has, like, I mean, you could call it a Freudian slip or whatever it is, where she says mine instead of theirs. And in like, my father, I can't remember the situation, but like, my father, blah blah blah. as she's talking about a patient as opposed to her father. And she does that twice with Dr. Lidauer, and Dr. Lidauer both times says, "You did it there. You said mine." And it's playing like some psychological thing, like she's actually putting it into her own head. She's taking her own troubles and putting her own issues onto the issues of the patient that she's trying to examine. Like that's how it kind of plays. And that's how Dr. Lidauer seems to read it both times. And then the third time she does it is in that final confrontation she has with Mike, where she says, your pocket knife instead of the other guy's pocket knife, and gives herself away. And every time it's like this, it's I don't know. Is it meant to be just some random issue that Dr. Ford has where she's just, that's a thing that she does where she just says the wrong word without realizing it? Like I was trying to figure out like what the intention was of how Mamet was designing that as coming from a psychiatrist.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things, because I think you're onto something, and I was noodling on that too. I think it's safe to say that Mamet does not personally have a terribly high opinion of therapy, of talk therapy.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Would you agree? Like
yeah.
This movie does not communicate a real rah, yay for mental health kind of an approach. And so given that, and given that his interpretation of therapy on screen is, again, gobbledygook, I think we're trying to say that this woman is very deeply human and broken in her own way, and we're going to demonstrate how broken she is and how ill-equipped she is to be a vessel of support for anyone else by showing all of these horrible things that no therapist would do, right? Would get involved at this level with any of their patients, right? This all starts because she just valiantly oversteps the client-patient or the patient-doctor relationship by trying to help this gambling addict and gets herself caught up in a con that she overestimates her ability to see her way through. And that's just bad psychiatry, right? It's just bad news all the way around. She's not equipped to do the job that she's doing. And I think it stems from Mamet's position, personally, I'm guessing. And it shows just, and all of her little like flubs, her little, I don't know, you can call them malpropisms. I don't know, something like that. Her
I'm
little,
not sure. I'm sure there's some psychiatric word for that.
all of those represent just another layer of brokenness, so that we never forget, audience, we never forget that she shouldn't be where she is. Whether she's in the House of Games, whether she's in bed with Joe Mantegna, or whether she is in the chair talking to somebody on the couch.
Yeah, and I I struggle trying to figure out if it's clever for Mamet to have named the book that she wrote Driven, Obsession and Compulsion in Everyday Life, or if it's just way too on the nose, because I mean it's basically the theme of the movie, right? Like that's basically where we are. It's like right at the very beginning we see this fan go up to her and hold the book out and just like nudge nudge wink wink, this is what the movie's about. It's like, okay, she is obsessed and has her own compulsions that she is dealing with, and here we are.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's switch the tables to Mantegna and the House of Games. Mike is the gambler. Their first meeting is where she goes, again, violating her relationship with her patient, and she goes to meet Mike, and she shows up really tough, right? She's using all the tough guy language, and we meet Mike. What do you think of Mike? Well, does he sell it as the con?
He sells it. Before I get into him, I just want to say that I do think that's an interesting way to write that scene, because we're writing her as this psychiatrist coming in who thinks that she really has a handle on how to operate with people. She understands people. She understands how people think, how people work. And so she walks into this situation kind of dominating as far as, I know Mike's here. I know you're Mike. And like feels like she kind of takes care of that whole thing, even through the actual game that they play, where she recognizes the water gun. All of that plays in a way where she feels like, to some extent, the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. And now going to Joe Mantegna coming in as Mike, the con man who's here set up at House of Games, where he's he's playing this poker game in the back. And I think Joe Mantegna is fantastic in the role. I just always enjoy Mantegna. I think he's a fun face to see on screen, and he's somebody who has worked with Mamet quite a lot. I think like at least 6 times in various projects, and so has a handle on how to deliver the lines, how to play off of other people in these scenes. And I think when it comes to playing a con man, I think he taps into that perfectly well and understands the mission and what his aim is to do here. I think he delivers.
I think he does too. I mean, I find him, Mantegna's got a charisma, right? And this movie, he gets a chance to exude some charisma, even if he doesn't get to show it in his eyeballs. He does get to show it in just the way he walks, the way he moves, the way he speaks. I think he's very, very good. I think that extends to his whole crew. Obviously, Ricky Jay, you hire Ricky Jay, you get Ricky Jay. And again, you talk about long-term collaborations. I think Ricky Jay is their little relationship, I think, is very, very strong in the film. I think as the con, one of the things I think that Mantegna pulls off really well is that he is able to transition through really dialogue alone to sell when he's in a con mode and when he is in this is my job mode, right? And nobody takes it on the crew, led obviously by Mantegna. Nobody takes it all very seriously when they're trying to take her for $6,000 and the jig is up. No, everybody's like, well, we tried. Shucks. And I actually found that transition, that transformation, when they start, actually processing their play and where did it go wrong? Well, you weren't supposed to fill the water pistol, you idiot. Like those moments, I think, were really strong. And we get those again, sort of repeated as the stakes increase throughout the movie in a way that is, I think, satisfying. I mean, you've seen it before. I hadn't seen it before. How easy was it for you to call the shot at the end, to call the game?
Well,
do you think we're supposed to have that, to find it a mystery, a shocking reveal at the end?
I don't know, but I feel like in the world of movies that are about cons, it is kind of a trope to make the movie itself a con, right?
Yep.
Like that, it's part of the nature. And so I can't, when I'm watching a movie that's about cons, I can't help but put myself in the place that this is all just a big con.
Yep.
Like I'm constantly thinking that. And so I'm always looking for, okay, this is all fake. That guy's in on it. And so that's just how I end up watching con movies. So it's a tricky thing. And I was thinking about that because, I mean, The Sting, which we talked about on the show ages ago as part of our Xanax series, was such a perfect example of how to pull off just a great, great con as a film, where you're watching them pull off a con. It just plays so perfectly.
Yes.
And I feel like every con film since then, in some capacity, has had to struggle a little bit with the fact that, okay, but it's a con film, and now there's kind of a trope of us conning the audience, right? It's just in the nature. And so what I think Mamet succeeds at with this film, which is again one of these con films, is that it doesn't end with the big con and the reveal and her devastation and realizing she's been conned. That's actually like the end of the second act, and we still have, or maybe not the second act, but it certainly is at that point where we're close to the climax of the film, and we get a whole other act of her now figuring out how she can one up them. And that actually makes this more of a success for me than some other con films, because suddenly it shifts the mentality of the thinking of our protagonist into somebody who now actively has to figure out how to get back at them.
Okay. I feel like you've opened the door to the end of the movie, and I want to talk about it because this right here is where my stars fall on this movie.
Okay. Yeah, and we haven't said it, but definitely watch this movie if you haven't seen it before really digging too much deeper into this conversation.
Is it such a moment that we should actually take a break?
We should actually take a break.
Okay.
Good point. Good point. All right, we're going to take a break first. You can find the show on YouTube, and you can join us live when we record. We'll even take your questions in the post-show chit-chat, and members get the replay and the extended cut. So subscribe to The Next Reel on YouTube. The link to this episode is in the show notes. We'll be right back.
All right. The end of this movie, the third act, I guess, so the bottom half of the third act of this movie, the transition. She, as you say, we've got the turnabout. And the expectation that I have, because again, this is a con movie, and I have an expectation that the con movie is going to do certain things. What I expected was that she was going to turn the table on the con men. After all, she wrote the book on cons. She wrote the book on the obsessives. She is a therapist. She is supposed to have some sort of expertise in this field, right? That's what we're set up ostensibly to believe. In the end, she does not turn the tables on these guys. She doesn't get eye for an eye vindication. She doesn't get her money back. She doesn't con them at all. She's just a murderer. She just kills the guy. That's it. That's her big expression of, oh my gosh, I got you, bang, bang. I found that a ridiculous letdown in this movie for this character that I thought we were going to see some real one-upmanship on the thugs. I thought we were going to get this kind of thing where she became an expert, where we got to see that she was actually ahead of them in that final act. And I was deeply disappointed by that.
Do you think that she went into that final situation planning to kill him?
Kinda. Yeah, because what else? He gave us, like, he sort of wrote himself into a box, right? He gave us no other indication that there was an out here. And she wears, like, I don't know, she even left his, I imagined that he was carrying money in his satchel. And she left the satchel.
His chair.
Yeah. She left the satchel. She didn't even want the money.
His satchel. Yeah, yeah. Well, the way that I read it, and I don't know if I'm right or not, but the way that I saw that whole scene playing out is she had come up with a way where she was going to do something. She was tricking him into thinking she had pulled her life savings out and it was in this bag that she was carrying.
Uh-huh.
And at some point, I think that she was going to try switching bags with him and give him a bag that was full of dirty laundry or whatever, the trope is, and make off with his bag of money. And I think the only reason that she failed is because of that weird tick that she has where she says the wrong thing and she calls it out that it's his knife instead of the guy in the room's knife. And that's what clues Mike into that she's leading him on. So I thought that she was trying to do something and she screwed it up because of that annoying thing that she does. And so her only solution at that point was to was to stop him and kill him. So I guess I didn't think initially she was there to just kill him, but in the end, that's what she did, and she forgave herself, and moved on.
Boy, howdy, did she? She actually went to meet her mentor and like work through some stuff. I think that's I mean that is certainly a read on it, and I think that I was so disappointed in how he played this character in the script that it was hard for me to see anything else. I mean, she shot him like 50 times. There were so many bullets in that gun.
I think it was just 6, but
it was 50 if it was 6. And
hey, he had enough time to quote a movie. That was something
did.
I wasn't expecting a David Mamet movie.
To quote another movie. I wonder what they had to pay to get that quote in there. Yeah, it is kind of an extraordinary, to me, it was an extraordinary sort of failing of the character, if not for the genre. So this is the next question. Like, set aside all of my complaints about this character, and what I wanted was cleverness, and what I got was blunt object. Does it fit the character, and does it fit the sort of gestalt of this movie as a noir? Right, it has trappings of noir. How well does it fit? How well does she fit?
That's interesting. I saw someone else describing this kind of neo-noirish, and I'm like, I don't know if I would jump into the noir camp on this one, just because it's a crime story. It didn't feel noirish, but obviously other people think that. So I think it's interesting that you bring that up, because clearly it's a thought people have. I felt that the way that the film ends, it's a con movie, crime movie. And does it find a way to step away from tropes? Does it step into noir maybe a little bit with her just kind of flat out killing him? I don't know. I guess I didn't struggle too much with the way that the film ended. I thought it played okay. I don't know if I loved it, but I think that it worked in context of kind of where we had been coming from,
Yeah, that the guys, what they ended up unlocking in her was her inner white hot rage machine being taken advantage of. And they, while they just wanted to get $6,000 and then 85 because they felt like they could keep getting it, what they really unlocked was, oh, she's a murderess. She is our deeply disturbed femme fatale, and we didn't see that coming, and she's going to be the one standing over him with a gun. And we're going to try to make the audience feel a certain way, that maybe there was a thread of their relationship together that is worth longing for. And I never felt that. That was not a success to me, right? The fact that they hooked up in the random tuxedo man's hotel room, I feel like I learned some things, maybe in the 80s, how to get a free few hours in someone else's hotel room. That was a nice trick. But I never felt like there was any relationship that I should expect to be legitimate between the two of them, never once. And I think maybe had I felt that way, had the movie given me any real emotion to work with in these people, I might have felt sadness when she shot him. And I did not feel any of that.
Interesting. I think it worked better for me in that regard. Like I felt that, I guess the question is like, what is her draw to Mike? Is it something that she's wanting to actually have a relationship with him? Is it just the fact that she's excited by this world again? The whole driven obsession and compulsion. Is she drawn to everything that he represents because of it, and so is okay just like throwing caution to the wind in this relationship, not necessarily thinking it's going to turn into marriage or anything like that, but just something that she's doing for fun? It's exciting. And it's introducing her to a side of herself that she's never fully explored, kind of this side that is a little bit okay with crime and crossing the line and everything. And so I bought into her as somebody who was genuinely curious about like this darker side of herself. And I like the way that Mamet portrays that, is somebody who's like, who may not fully understand why she's drawn by this and pulled into this, yet has the compulsion and needs to do it. I mean, clearly it's triggered something in her, because at the very end of the film, we see that she's become a pickpocket now. She's stealing this lighter from this other lady, right? So she has found a thing with herself, and probably also after she stole it said, "I forgive myself." Right? Yeah. That's like the other probably not great lesson that she's learned in this film.
Well, it turns out that was the lesson she knew all along as a therapist, was you have to be able to get, that's the only tool she came into this movie with. Like, we know she was deeply unsettled with her work at the beginning, right? She had admitted that she's like, what am I even doing here? Right? This is not, right. I'm bad at this. Helping. We're not helping anybody with what we do. I can't change anything. She's deeply unsettled as a therapist. And so, the movie, it seems to be making the case that, what she was meant to be, the hand-to-glove career relationship that she was meant to have all along is, I should have been a criminal from day one. Like, all the tools that I need to be right with myself internally, I have, thanks to my training as a therapist, and now I'm going to go steal stuff from people, and occasionally off the bad ones.
How long do you think before she goes and steals another car from a parking garage? Like,
not long. Ready. She made that look easy.
Yeah, she's ready. Yeah, it's a fascinating glimpse into the psychology. And so, I don't know, I guess that's what I find fascinating, is that Mamet chose to write her as a psychiatrist. Obviously, we've talked about the fact that he probably doesn't seem to think too highly of that particular field, but this is a person who has a lot of thought about how people think, and has now, I think now, after looking at Mike and trying to figure out, like, she's doing research to write this book, like, that's the whole premise that she has in kind of following him, is to learn the world of the con, and so she can write a book about it. Gets completely played and taken for a massive amount of money, gets revenge, and now is in this place where I think she's seeing it as being okay, and like, you know what, I'm learning and I'm growing, and I actually have a better handle on who I am now that I didn't necessarily have before, and I can move forward better. So I don't know, going long way around to your question, I found more of a connection to kind of the emotional relationship. And so when she actually kills Mike, I was like, I thought that was actually pretty interesting. And I enjoyed the journey that she had been going on.
That's like a 10-minute walk around the block that you did to actually answer my question. That was extraordinary what you did. How many parenthetical asides did we have between the question and that? I want to go. I just think that I think the con, her con is the invisible con, which is, I'm going to write a book about it, right? Like, she was conning herself. Totally. Always got to ask, who are you lying to? Are you lying to the people, or are you lying to yourself? She was lying to herself the whole time. The con was get her into this business. That is in many ways the con of the self-help literature business. And I say that as somebody who has actually contributed to the self-help literature business. I think that she uses that as a way to discover something about herself that she never knew was in there all along. And I just wish that it had been directed by somebody who could get that out of Lindsay Crouse. My big complaint about her, summed up, is that in order for her to be the change character in the movie, in order for me to feel something about it, I need some sense of a beginning. And what I get from her emotionally is she starts at kind of the same emotional register that she ends, and she just unlocks a how, but not a why. And we already know the why from jump, and I just didn't find that as compelling as I'd hoped as a fan of other Mamet con stuff, and that was disappointing.
Well, and I think that's Mamet. I certainly don't blame Lindsay Crouse. I think she has
No.
proven herself plenty of times as somebody who
100%.
can do great performances, including The Verdict, another project, again, going back to a Mamet project, but also one he didn't direct.
Yes.
And so there, I think we're seeing what exactly you're talking about play out.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't need to belabor the rest of that, but the other guys, we talked about Ricky Jay. Interesting that the envelope and the buck, or the $20 trick.
Yeah.
Apparently he invented that trick with the tongue on money.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Pete froze. Pete is frozen. Totally frozen.
Disappointing.
There he is. He's
froze up on a joke. That's a disappointment.
I know.
They made the guy lick money, like with his real mouth tongue.
Yeah.
You don't have a problem with that like I did? That was disgusting.
Well, it's an interesting... The story behind it, though, is interesting, which I think is funny because Ricky Jay, I mean, we've talked about him a number of times, and the fact that he is a magician, he is somebody who is a very intelligent person, and in the scope of this film, one of the things that he was brought on to do was because he knew all of these short cons, like he's in the circle of all of these people who pull all these sorts of things and know how they do these sorts of things. And they asked him to do this $20 swap thing for this particular thing. He felt too much honor, I guess. It's I don't know. The con man code, is that like the magician's code? Apparently, according to Ricky, it is. He didn't want to give away how these con men actually do it. So he came up with a totally original con. And so that licking the dollar trick is an original Ricky Jay trick that he came up with to
never used.
Pull that off.
Right.
And never well, actually somebody I think ended up getting caught either doing that or one of the cons that they tried to do in the movy. It might have been.
You think it was the Western Union con
or something?
It was the Western Union con, and it's because they did it in 2011, I'm sure, when Western Union wasn't really doing much of that. That's funny.
With good old W.H. Macy. That was nice to see him credited as that.
W.H. Macy. Yeah, distinguished.
W.H. and J.T. both in this film together.
J.T. Walsh was sort of my favorite little incidental character in the movie because I kind of find J.T. Walsh. I was working on my review, and I wrote that I think J.T. Walsh is Mamet proof.
He's great.
He's great,
well.
And I don't think Mamet can direct him to be as emotionless as he would have wanted him to be. I feel like J.T. Walsh you could see through, and it made him one of the most sort of unintentionally entertaining characters of intensity in the movie. I do think from an editing perspective, they may have used the wrong cut when they close the door and leave his body in presumably shot at this point. He is still breathing, and it's pretty obvious that he's still breathing. And that may have given away the con to us as the audience, if you weren't already in on it.
It either gives away the con or it's just what you expect in movies of certain eras where it's like the person's dead, but they're still breathing. You just kind of go along with the fact that, that's a tricky one because it's like in the world of movies, it's like so often we've seen movies where somebody is dead, but you can still tell that they're breathing. They're trying really hard not to, but you can tell.
They start quivering.
Yeah. So there's a line, and I think that's always a tricky one with film. But, but yeah, and again, those are people that you've been bringing up who are kind of Mamet regulars, people who have recurred, including Lindsay Crouse, who was his wife at the time, popping in and out of his different movies, and I think that's it's always kind of fun to see. He certainly has drawn a certain crowd of actors who love being in his films.
Yeah. He shot this in Seattle, which was weird. It was originally set. It was written to be in Chicago, which is Mamet Town, and it surprised me to see it in Seattle. Although I will say, it's a poor Seattle. Like, it's not as if they used like locations for Seattle. This is one of those movies where it just feels uninhabited. She gets to the bar, and there's just no one on the street. Like, that never happens. Yeah. This is the most filthy yet sterile interpretation of a city, and so it feels like a set. It just feels like a wet street set that they created. It does not feel like Seattle to me. As someone who's, I've spent some time in Seattle and live up here, it doesn't feel normal.
I assumed it was Chicago for a chunk of the film just because it's David Mamet. I kind of walked in thinking Chicago the whole time. And then I think there were a couple giveaways. One was like, there was like a Washington license plate, and it was like, oh, maybe we're in Washington. And then there was something else that there was some signage that said Seattle, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're in Seattle. And then his pocket knife had the Space Needle on it.
Yep.
And so, like, those three things, I'm like, okay, this is Seattle. That was the last place I would have expected a Mamet film to be set, which, just kind of struck me as funny that's where it was. But
yeah,
because it doesn't feel like Seattle. Like, nothing stands out as we're in the Pacific Northwest. It's just like, here's a random building, here's a random street. Like you said, it all felt uninhabited, and nothing was like, here's an iconic shot with the Space Needle in the background. Like, nothing like that. So it just felt very generic as far, like, to the point where I was like, is he even wanting us to realize this is Seattle?
I really don't think he cared. I think he went to Seattle because of the budget, and he could save money by going to Seattle, and he didn't really care. It needed to be generic city. City was not part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of ended up how it felt, for sure.
That's certainly how it felt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else is hot on your list?
Just a couple things. One, just thinking about this particular series, David Mamet Directs. As you mentioned earlier, we've covered The Spanish Prisoner and Red Belt. And I do think this is something that we see in his films. And I think we can probably argue in the films that he has written. So if we looked at our David Mamet Writes series and expanded that a little bit, his stories, he really likes stories about a particular society and their codes, right?
Yes.
Like in both of the Spanish Prisoner and this film, both con films, we have these con men and their worlds and their rules and the way they play. Same thing in Red Belt, totally not a con film, but very much kind of that, I know, it was a Brazilian jiu-jitsu sort of thing, whatever it was.
Still
but
codes.
But a very specific code. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that is something that, speaking of obsession, like her book, I think David Mamet has a little bit of an obsession about codes. Like if you look at something like The Untouchables, the police, the criminals, how people in their world react and interact with others. And I think that's
the Chicago way.
Very much part of his gestalt as far as what he likes to explore.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I think this movie is a playground for exactly those kinds of things, because it's something that we really, I think, can't, like, it's so hard to see in real life. Like it's believable because I make it believable because I don't exist in those circles, but I can go to jiu-jitsu tournaments. I can see those guys in real life. I can, there are a lot of cops and, investigators in the world who live the life of the Untouchables, who lived at that time and have that experience. But this one, you can do whatever you want because it's it's a playground. It's a cultural playground that so few people actually live and know. Even Glengarry, right? Glengarry is a movie also about codes and
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
right? But it's a movie where a lot of people have worked in sales at some point in their lives. A lot of people understand the pressure of hitting numbers. A lot of people understand, oh, I met some arbitrary goal. I got a set of steak knives, right? Like that is a very familiar kind of landscape for him to be playing and interpreting. And I think that's what makes that movie such a great litmus test, or that story a great litmus test for, how you feel about that industry. This one just gets to play. And so it goes back to what is tropey and what is not, right? I've said it time and time again. I don't care about tropes. I care about how well the tropes are played in any given movie. And this one I struggle with. It feels like there are some tropes that are tropes of assorted films, assorted con films. And I struggle because I hadn't seen it. And when it was released, is it an early marker of, sort of first time of some of these tropes that I've just now internalized over the last, 40 years? Or is it just something that's been playing the hits all this time of much, much earlier movies? To me, it hit as the latter, and it was more disappointing than I'd hoped it would be.
Interesting. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot going for this. It's not like peak Mamet, and honestly, I generally find peak Mamet to be projects that he's written that he didn't direct.
Yes.
I just don't think as a director he's as strong when he's telling his stories. Like you brought up Glengarry Glen Ross. I think that is a great example of another director coming in, directing Mamet dialogue in a way that felt so much more natural consistently.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And it's, man, he's such a prolific writer and has been around for so long. Look at one of our top performing downloads for such a weird movie, yeah. The Edge, written by David Mamet, directed by Lee Tamahori, is another excellent example of a Mamet script directed by someone else. The dialogue, I can absolutely reinterpret the same script directed by David Mamet, and it sounds a hell of a lot like House of Games. But in The Edge, it actually reads like a complicated sort of action survival movie and a thriller, and it plays as such much better.
I agree. I definitely agree.
All right.
I only had one last note, and it was an interesting costume choice that Mamet chose to direct, or to have Maggie.
That stays in, Mammy. I'm going to say it a bunch of times so that you can't cut it.
Has Maggie dress more masculine, like always wearing pants, the pantsuit sort of look that she has going on, short hair, until she kills Mike. After that is when suddenly when we see her next, she's dressed more in a feminine way.
She's in a skirt the first time she sees Mike and the last time she sees Mike.
Oh, first time also.
First time she sits up on a stool, and she has, right. That is a femme fatale move. The way she sits up there, elbow on the bar, crosses her legs, lights a cigarette. And cigarettes, Andy. Have you seen so many cigarettes in any other movie?
I can't believe that it took us this long to bring that up. I was like, has there been more smoking in a movie than this one? My God.
Oh my God. The times it feels like they light a cigarette, they take one drag, throw it on the ground, and light another cigarette. Like the obsession was not with smoking, it was the act of lighting cigarettes. And as such, this movie had an extraordinary cigarette budget.
Oh, it had to. My God. And the fact that the thing that she ends up stealing at the end, a lighter.
Cigarettes. A lighter, right. Yeah. That's the last thing. Yeah, the lighter, okay, just last point. Did the lighter have any emotional weight for you? Right? Was that supposed to be our Maltese Falcon, that we're tracking the lighter all the way along? Because they make a big deal about it in her first scene with her mentor at the restaurant. Like they're close-ups of it, and it's beautiful, and they talk about it. And then it seems like there are lighters placed throughout the movie, and then she steals the lighter at the end. Was I supposed to feel some way about the lighter? I never felt any way about the lighter.
I never, well, and then because matches were another thing. She runs out of matches at one point and has to find more matches. And I don't know exactly what the reasoning for all of that was as far as focusing so much on it and making such an emotional attachment to it. Because she talks about that with Dr. Littenauer about like, I love that lighter. I've always wanted to have a real lighter, something heavy that feels, old, or I can't remember what she says at the beginning, but there's a whole thing, like a monologue that she has, a Mamet monologue about this lighter.
Would you call it a mammalogue?
Mammalogue. Weirdly, the only thing I could think about at the end when she stills the lighter is like, what are the odds that that woman had the exact same lighter as Dr. Littenauer? Like that was all I could think about. Like why the exact same lighter? That made no sense to me. It's like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it like that common of a lighter that I shouldn't have thought about it? Is this like the rich person's Bic?
I was never into like lighter culture, but it was a cool lighter. It had the thing where you strike it like the roller or the flint or whatever it was, you strike sideways and the flame comes out the top so you don't burn yourself every time you light it.
It was cool. I did like it.
It was cool. Yeah, that was cool.
So,
all right.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move into the back half, but first let's take a quick break.
The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson, music by Tsabutan, Sour Wah, Oriole Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show and the full archive at truestory.fm. You can follow us from there too and learn about membership. Check out our merch store at thenextreel.com/merch. And if your app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show. All right, sequels and remakes, Andy. Can we see it again?
Well, there was a stage adaptation of this. It wasn't Mamet who actually adapted it, which I think is interesting, but somebody else adapted it in 2010 for a London show. I think it was received okay. It didn't seem like it really expanded much beyond that. Last but not least, this is interesting. 2025, Amazon Studios announced that they are doing a reimagining starring and produced by Viola Davis and Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how that goes. Like, how are they reimagining it? Are they going to flip-flop who's, like, is it going to be she's the con man and he is the one who comes into the world? Or is she
I
the
don't know, but
psychiatrist?
I'm sure that it is. I don't know, but I'm sure of it. Viola Davis is going
I think
to be
she
the
would
con.
sign on to be a con.
Yeah, right.
That'd
That
be
just
fun.
checks out.
So, but that was 2025. I don't know if that's still in active, production or pre-production. I don't know where it is, but it'll be interesting to see if they do end up coming up with that.
How'd it do at award season?
It did okay. 6 wins, 5 other nominations. At the David DiDonatello Awards, it was nominated for Best Foreign Screenplay, but lost to Au revoir les enfants.
Les Enfants.
Les enfants. I knew I was going to say it wrong. Golden Globes nominated for Best Screenplay, but lost to The Last Emperor. And then at the Venice Film Festival, it won Best Screenplay. It won Best Film for the Passanetti Award, which is one given by the Italian film journalists. It was nominated for the Cinecritica Award. It won, but it was a tie with Drachenfutter. This is a prestigious honor given at the Venice International Film Festival by the National Union of Italian Film Critics. And then it won Best Film, the Golden Siak Award. This is one voted on by the readers of Siak magazine. And it was nominated for the Golden Lion. This is the Venice Film Festival's Best Picture Award. But it lost to, again, Au revoir les enfants.
That was perfect. That was, I think, any of our
Goodbye,
French
children.
audience would say, yes, bye-bye, children. All right. Well, so it got some attention. It got a little bit of attention. But how did it do at the box office?
Yet another one where the budget information just is not available. Very frustrating. The film premiered October 11th, 1987 at the New York Film Festival before opening limited October 16th. It was a rough week for new releases with only Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2 opening wide And this one landed in 10th place with other limited releases of Weeds, Barfly, Hope and Glory, and this all below all of that. I wrote that really poorly. I'm trying to read that again. It was a rough week for new releases, with only Hello, Mary Lou Prom Night 2 opening wide, landing in 10th place, with other limited releases of Weeds, Barfly, Hope and Glory. And this film landing below all of those. But when the box office was leading with Fatal Attraction, Like Father, Like Son, The Princess Bride, Someone to Watch Over Me, and Dirty Dancing, you could see why it was hard for anything to get in there. Anyway, this film's limited release did not last long, and it ended up earning just $2.5 million, or $7.2 million in today's dollars. There's a chance it earned its money back, but without knowing the budget, we just don't know.
Well, that's a bummer because I'd like to see where it stands on the Apfum list. This movie, I'm glad we watched it. I'm glad to have it in the catalog. It certainly earns its reputation for just its formal precision, and I just wish it had given Margaret a resolution to me that was worthy of that transformation. And I think that's a loss on this movie.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I think it's a fun film. I enjoy the different cons that are going on. It is one that, like, when you know it's a con film and you can say, okay, how is she being conned? You can figure it out pretty quickly. But I still have fun with it. I agree. The Mametness of it does leave it feeling fairly cold, and that can be a little frustrating. But I still think it's a fun enough film to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, that is it for our conversation about David Mamet's House of Games. Next week, we return to our Alien series. We finally catch up with Ridley Scott's Alien Covenant. We discussed it on the film board when it first came out, but never got to it on this show. This is going to be the time for it, Pete.
Oh, Andy.
I know. All right. Let's do our ratings.
All right. Let's see. Where did I end up? I spent a lot of time working on my review for Letterboxd, and I think ultimately this movie's going to land at a 3-star, no heart for me because of the last hour of our conversation. It just doesn't shine the way some Mamet shines for me, and I don't think I'm going to come back to it. I think I'm a one and done on House of Games.
Interesting. I am at 3.5. I definitely enjoyed it more than you did, and I'm going to give it a heart because I enjoyed it more than you did. I think there's fun to be had with it. There's moments that I really enjoyed. It's never completely as great as some other Mamet films or other films that Mamet wrote and didn't direct, but I still enjoy it. In the scope of con films, I have a good time with it still.
Good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. That averages out to 3.25, which will round up to 3.5 and a heart. You can find the show on Letterboxd at The Next Reel. You can find me there at Soda Creek Film. You can find Pete there at Pete Wright. So what did you think of House of Games? We would love to hear your thoughts. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community where we will be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends.
Our conversation begins.
I already have my review picked out.
Whoa.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
I wonder, since we didn't take the time to talk about that, we were already prepared if we picked the same one. Would you like to go first?
Yes, I will go first. Francis Meh.
Damn it. Okay, all right. I'm not going to pick another one, but you get the first line, I'll get the second one. Or okay. I'll get the first line, you get the second one. You pick.
I'll just go with the first one. Francis Meh gives it 2 stars and has this to say. The trailer. David Mamet. He's got a feel for the way people talk.
The way people talk in this movie. She says it is a lurg. It is called a lurg. And so if we invert lurg, a lurg is a girl. And so she is the animal. God, it's so dumb. It's so also clearly David Mamet loves therapy. Thank you, Letterboxd.
Oh my God. All right. We've got some questions in our post-show chit-chat. Certainly some that feel familiar from our conversation. Does David Mamet think psychiatry itself is a con?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, he does.
Yes. Yep. No kidding. How do you think Mamet does with actors in managing tone and performance compared to his later films? We didn't really talk comparing his later films to this one as far as, like, did he learn anything, Pete?
Yeah, let me open his. Well, we've talked about obviously Spanish Prisoner and Red Belt, and I think Spanish Prisoner and Red Belt are both better than this movie in terms of how he handles actors, what kind of performance he gets out of them.
You could even go to like Heist would be another good example.
A great example.
Yeah.
Great example. But I also think, Campbell Scott is another one of those actors like J.T. Walsh that I would categorize as Mamet proof. I think Campbell Scott wears his emotions so much on his sleeve that it's hard to get him not to be to be authentically in a space and tone down his delivery. So, there is, and same thing with Chewie, like Chiwetel Ejiofor in Red Belt, I think is such a performative face. Like, it's hard. I don't know. Obviously, we weren't there. I don't know what he was directed to do, but I get so much more out of Chewie's performance in Red Belt, just as a human being participating in a complicated, organism of a film, than I get out of anyone in House of Games. So I have to put that down as a marker of improvement or change on Mamet's part as a director.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever you think of those movies, like they're just different.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see a sense of growth over his career. So,
yeah.
Does the movie seem like filmed theater? Why or why not?
I think so, and it actually that struck me, especially when you have scenes like the scene I'm thinking of specifically. She's crossing the wet street going into. I can't remember if it was House of Games or Charlie's, one of the places, and there's just nobody on the street, and that is just like we're in the theater right now, and that is Mamet's sort of home native language, and it just felt very much like I was watching a play. Although there is a really cool reveal the first time she goes into House of Games, and it is filmed. Her entrance. It feels like she's walking into an all but empty bar, right? The camera is low, crossing like across her hip to the bartender who's standing behind the bar, clearly busy doing something he doesn't want to be bothered with from. And he says, "Can I help you?" She approaches the bar. After she orders scotch and water, the camera is low again, and it's tracking along the bar, and you get the reveal that there are other people in this place playing pool and so it's like humanized. The location becomes humanized over the course of this tracking shot, and I thought that was kind of special. But most of this feels like it's just we're going to focus on our principal characters, and that's what we get until we get to the airport. The airport's a busy place,
and the hotel.
Yeah, and the hotel too. There's like a conference or something,
and the street outside when she's still in the car and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Is this movie misogynistic at all with its characterization of Dr. Ford as woman-scorned and too uptight? Is she conned because of her infatuation and attraction to Joe Mantegna? Misogynistic? I mean, you could argue that's very true with Mamet and
stock and trade
women characters. But also, I think how he specifically wrote her, I don't know if that ends up being misogynistic or just somebody who
tone
doesn't
deaf.
like psychiatrists.
Yeah, right. But you could make the other argument, right? In the end, it's a woman who is taken advantage of for her blind spots. They aren't necessarily, I think, gendered blind spots, but professional blind spots, right? I think she's more taken advantage of because of her ideology as a psychotherapist than she is as a woman. But she also wins in the end, right? If you call that winning, she becomes a murderess who gets to finally wear color in the last scene, right? We didn't talk about that, but that last sequence where when she's stealing the lighter as a pickpocket, she's wearing a beautiful, brightly colored, it's like begonias on silk or something. I don't know, flowers. But it's very much her identity is awakened And so I think you could make the case the other way, that he actually empowered her to be who she was meant to be, even if that person is not really good in the world.
It's all about forgiving yourself, Pete. That's the
She
message
she
here.
forgave the hell out of herself
She
with
sure
wearing
did.
that shirt.
I can't forgive her for wearing that.
She'll never be forgiven.
Is Dr. Ford set up as a mark from the beginning with the patient, or is she targeted by the hood as a mark later? When? I think they find the book and get a sense of her from the book and go, this could work, and they send him in. They send Billy in to do the counseling as a test to see if they think that they're going to be able to pull it off with her. And they
Well, then
kind of
here's
set up
another
that whole
question for you,
thing.
though. Was Billy already a patient of hers? How long was he a patient of hers?
I don't think he was already a patient of hers. I think he was one of them, and he came to them to, like, they said, you're going to play this guy who's a gambling addict. You're going to go see her for help. And I think that was all part of the script they wrote.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Mamet does drop a lot of clues that, it's even her mentor who says, you need to enjoy life. You wrote this book. It's doing very well. Your income has changed, right? Like, she makes this point of saying, you're wealthy now.
Yeah.
Live life a little bit, rest, enjoy lunch with your friend. So she became a mark actually at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Where does Mamet slot for you in terms of film bro directors with distinct dialogue styles? Wes Anderson, Aaron Sorkin, Martin McDonagh, Coen brothers, Quentin Tarantino, and Mamet. It's quite a list.
I need to restart my router. Clearly, what was the question? Did we do
Oh.
It was the writers.
Yeah,
Film?
the writers. Yeah.
Well,
I guess in my head I can't think of Martin McDonagh as one of those people, so I guess I would just take him off that list because I don't think of him as somebody who has distinct dialogue style.
but
Maybe
Anderson,
he does,
Sorkin, Coen's, Tarantino, and Mamet are all on the list.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I would say maybe Aaron Sorkin is the one who I can buy into the most as realistic dialogue.
Yeah.
Anderson, Coen's, Tarantino all have their own kind of worlds with their own kind of unique dialogue that fits their world, and I think Mamet is kind of in that camp too. Like, but I think Mamet can feel realistic when directed the right way.
Yeah. I think I think over the course of the series and reviewing kind of what we've talked about with the other films, I feel like I appreciate Mamet so much more on the stage than the written and directed stuff, even as much as I like some of those movies. I just feel like he's a creature native to the stage.
Yeah. Let's see. Just kind of scrolling through this.
Pete, not into the reveal that the thugs peg her as a mark, but didn't account for how she had inner icy femme fatale to unlock. I guess that's accurate. I think that's an accurate interpretation. I didn't find that part believable, but that sums it up perfectly.
Yeah, really does. If not Lindsay Crouse, who would be the best 1987 casting? Sharon Stone, Teresa Russell,
good.
Glenn Close, Faye Dunaway, Michelle Pfeiffer. Some of those seem maybe a little too young for me in 1987.
Michelle Pfeiffer?
She seems too young.
She's too young?
I picture her like that's like Lady Hawk era. It's Married to the
Well,
Mob
when did
era.
she do Baker Boys? Because in terms of
That was 90.
Okay, so you don't think she could have pulled off a Baker Boys-esque performance in 87? I think she could have done it. I think Dunaway's a lock. Like, Dunaway could have absolutely done it, but
I'd say Dunaway and Close are the two from that list.
I know. And they, like, the problem is every one of these, Sharon Stone had...
Too young.
Yeah, too young, but also had the other, what was it called? That crazy movie that everybody was obsessed with the legs uncrossing scene.
But that was 91.
That was 91. That's true.
Yeah.
Would she have gotten that part if she had done this?
I don't know.
Glenn Close had Fatal Attraction.
Same year as this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad she didn't do this because Fatal Attraction got exactly what it needed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm on board for Michelle Pfeiffer. I think Michelle Pfeiffer could have done it.
Too young. Too young.
I hear you. I acknowledge you exist.
But I ignore you.
And I forgive you.
Yes. Yes.
Oh wait, I forgive myself for ignoring you.
That's right. It's all about forgiving yourself. What do you think of the movie's visual style? Any favorite shots? I didn't have any. I would say, the only thing I really noticed visually was like a lot of kind of POV-esque shots of like peering through doors, like her perspective as she's figuring things out, but nothing stood out for me. Like that one shot clearly stood out to you.
Yeah. Which shot was that? Are you referring to? Because I've got another one in my head.
The tracking from when she comes
the tracking
into the
shot.
bar,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
like that whole thing you talked about.
That would be one of my favorite shots. I think the other one is the shot, to your point specifically, when she is learning from the guys, hearing them talk about how they conned her so thoroughly around every corner. The way that is that POV sort of between slots in the restaurant door or something. It wasn't clear what she was peeking through in the restaurant entrance to make that work, but I did like that shot.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple last questions. What's the movie's signature scene? Is it Crouse snooping on the gang with all the excessive "that bitch" comments?
That's the shot I'm talking about. That's funny. But is that the signature scene?
I wouldn't say that's the signature scene. I would say the signature scene is the first time she meets Mike and he asks her to sit in on the game.
Yeah.
And she to watch for the tell, and all of it's just a play on her.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Last question. Flick chart fight, Pete. 1987 Thrillers edition. House of Games or Fatal Attraction? Black Widow or Suspect?
Well, you got to do them one at a time.
All right. House of Games or Fatal Attraction? Absolutely.
Fatal Attraction.
House of Games or Black Widow?
Black Widow.
I can't remember Black Widow well enough to. I know I watched it back then, but I don't know a thing about it, so I can't speak to that one. Okay. Suspect is another one.
I can't comment
way
on
too
Suspect.
long since
That's
I saw
the one
Suspect.
but Cher and Quaid and Neeson.
I think that's the one where they do a little courtroom thing where he throws something and the guy catches it with his good hand. I think it's one of those sorts of scenes.
Oh, it's a real awakenings moment.
Something, yeah.
We should do a whole series of people throwing things at people who shouldn't be able to catch them.
But do.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
that's
all right.
awesome.
That's it, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for tuning in.
Brian.
Appreciate you all for tuning in, and we'll be back next week for the next couple of weeks to wrap up our Alien franchise. So, are we looking forward to that? I don't know, but
already know where this is
going. Once we get
going.
to Romulus, I'll be looking forward to it. Yes, got to get through Covenant first. But all right, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Covenant. Oh, God.